Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining the Ocean Power Innovation Network Annual Symposium. I'm Laura Macadre. I'm project manager at WEAMEC. We are very glad to be with you for a bit less than 2 hours. So just a bit of indications before we start for this meeting. So your microphone will be muted during the event, but you can ask your questions in the Q&R box at any time, and we will answer your questions either during each presentation or during the final Q&A session. So the event will be recorded, and both the recording and the slides will be shared on the OPIN website after the meeting. So before we start, I will just give a brief introduction on WEAMEC. So WEAMEC is a network of about 120 members, both academics and from the industry, dedicated to marine renewable energy. And we have a strong focus on research, innovation, and training. We are based in Pays de la Loire region in France. We are funding research projects for our members. We are helping them to build a European funded project, and we can also be directly involved, such as in OPIN, for instance. We have also developed our own training modules dedicated to marine renewables, and you can find more information on all these activities on the WEAMEC website. So now I will give the floor to Enke Mollers, our project officer from Interreg Northwest Europe. I'm very pleased, Enke, that you could join us here in Nantes today for the OPIN Annual Symposium.
Thank you, Laura May. I hope you can all hear and see me well. So as mentioned, yeah, I'm Enke Mollers. I work at the Interreg Northwest Europe program, which is located in Lille in France. And I was asked today to give a little introduction on the OPIN project from a funder's perspective. And I'm really happy to be here today, so thank you for inviting me to this symposium. Interreg Northwest Europe has approved OPIN about 3 years ago in October 2018. And we are financing this project with about 60% of the total budget. So we are investing about 1.5 million euros in this project. From our funders objectives, I can say that the project fits very well with our innovation priority in our program. So our aim at program level is really to help enterprises innovate in the Northwestern European area, and thus give enterprises the possibility to advance their solutions or technologies closer to the market. And at the same time, our program has also the big priority to work on energy-related matters with a strong focus on production and consumption of renewable energies, and to increase that in our area. So in line with all the big EU policies that are in place, like the EU Green Deal. And OPIN really perfectly fits to these objectives we have on program level. It wants to strengthen the competitiveness of ocean energy in Northwest Europe, so the competitiveness of enterprises, to facilitate Europe's energy transition. So it's really, the objective of the project really fits well with our program objectives. And as far as I can see, being the project officer for this project, the partnership is great, very enthusiastic, and has a very good expertise in this field. And from the first results I can already see from the projects, it's impressive to see the high number of members in the OPIN network. Originally 200 were only planned, and now you have already more than 400 members in the network, and I think that's quite impressive. So I'm looking forward to the results you will have in the end when you supported the 100 companies you want to target. And what is particularly interesting about OPIN as well is that it looks beyond the ocean energy sector as well, because you want to establish cross-sectoral collaborations, which I think is a great initiative. So you bring SMEs together that jointly work in groups to work on their solutions. So that is really a good point. And that is totally in the spirit of Interreg, because Interreg seeks to support European transnational cooperation. So cooperation across borders. It wants to create synergies between regions and between different sectors, and by that hopefully improve the economic performance of our regions in Northwest Europe. So I think OPIN is really in line with this. And for the remaining time to come for the project, I really wish the entire OPIN partnership a successful continuation of the project, a good achievement of the results, of course, and a good meeting for today. And I really hope that all the SMEs involved and that are now also perhaps at this symposium really benefit of this project and can get the most out of it. I thank you for the attention for now. That's all I wanted to say, and I wish you a successful meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Anke. Thank you very much. I will now give the floor to Anna Sladik from ACAI for the OPIN introduction. Just a brief overview of the agenda. Before that, we will discuss today the different services that we are offering to our members. So the technology assessment process, the collaborative innovation groups. We'll have a session dedicated to the long term of OPIN and how to make the network sustainable. And we'll finish with some questions and answers. For the participants who may be physically present at Synergy 2021 in Nantes, we are having a networking event at 4 p.m. on WEAMEC booth, Pays de la Loire Pavilion. So please feel free to join this networking event at the end together with other Interreg funded projects. And I will say it again, I will give you more information at the end of the meeting. So now, Anna, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Laura May. Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Anna Sladik. I'm Program Executive at Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland, which is also the project coordinator for OPIN. So what is OPIN? OPIN, or Ocean Power Innovation Network, is a big European collaborative network established in 2019 with financial support from Interreg Northwest Europe. The main targets are to give in-depth support to over 100 companies and to develop OPIN as a self-sustaining network. We don't charge any membership fees, so if you haven't already, please join the network. It's free and you can fill out the membership form at our webpage. OPIN premise is to encourage both cross-sectoral and cross-regional collaboration for offshore renewable energy SMEs. The project itself is led by 7 partners from Ireland, UK, Belgium, France, Netherlands, and Germany. And in less than 3 years, we managed to develop a big network with over 400 members from 30 countries. So if you can see on the slide, as you can see on the slide, most of our members are small and medium enterprises from Northwest Europe. All of our services are free. So as an OPIN member, you get access to free events like masterclasses, workshops, webinars. You also get a free expert advice on your technology. And as an OPIN member, you can participate in collaborative innovation groups, but these services will be covered in detail by my colleagues later on. Everything we do can be found online. So if you go to our website, you can find our OPIN members list. You can check out our library where where all the presentations, change studies, reports are filed, are stored. Also, I invite you to follow us on social media, OPIN Twitter and LinkedIn groups for the latest updates. And if you have any queries at all, you can always email us at opin@sci.ie. That's all for me. Thank you guys for your attention, and I'll hand over to Laura May now.
Thank you, Anna, for the presentation. So today we would like to use a polling tool. We would like to ask you questions to get your feedback on OPIN. So obviously all the answers will be anonymous, but we will kindly ask you to connect to Mentimeter, www.menti.com, and enter the code that you see appearing here. And I think maybe you will see this appearing also in the chat. So yes, Mark is now sharing the Mentimeter screen, and we would like to have a quick icebreaker and ask all of you what country are you joining us from today, just to see a bit where you're from, and also to test the tool that we will use again during the other sessions of the OPIN Symposium. Okay, I see Ireland, Scotland, UK, Isle of Man. And yeah, it's also a way for you to try the tool and see how it works. And yeah, more people from Scotland. So again, we will use this tool during the different sessions to get your feedback on OPIN, to collect your insight on what we'll do. Okay, thank you. We see here, yeah, different countries connected. So yeah, a bit more of France, etc. I think we will move on to the next part of the symposium. Thank you for this quick icebreaker. I'll share my screen. Okay. And we'll move on to the progress to date. And again, we'll come back to this Mentimeter tool later on during the presentation. So please keep it open on your smartphone or on your computer. So regarding the OPIN project, you had the overview from Anna. I will now enter more in details in the progress in 2021. So as already mentioned quickly by Anna, we have now 440 OPIN members from 30 different countries. We are very pleased of this broad range of participants from all continents. Regarding the type of members, again, here you can see on the right side, we're covering really both large enterprise, but also SMEs, sectoral agencies, academics, institutionals. We add some target values to reach by the end of the project. For most of them, we are largely above these targets. And in particular for the SMEs, we're supposed to have 200 SMEs part of OPIN by the end of the project. So we are very pleased to have now 300 SMEs and the project is not over. So now what is the real challenge for us is to make sure that all these members do really benefit from the activities that we offer within OPIN. So if you're curious about who are these 440 members, you can check our member list. It's available on our website. You can see here a screenshot. So you just click on the members tab to get the list. We will discuss this in more details in the long-term session, but we will be working on a more interactive tool so you can connect to each other directly. Regarding the progress in 2021, so we had 70 additional members during the first semester. We organized 10 events. So 7 of them were more workshops, webinars on a variety of different topics. We organized 2 masterclasses, so more kind of trainings on moorings and OPEX modeling, and 1 annual symposium, which is actually now. We had 9 technology assessment process that Magnus will speak in more details about. So 9 have been completed or are currently under review. 1 collaborative innovation group on corrosion monitoring has been completed. Another one is just starting about corrosion in reinforced concrete. And actually there are more CIGs closer to the SMEs that Jennifer will discuss in more details later on during the presentation. And finally, we had 1 long-term study conducted on the sustainability of the network. Regarding the events we organized since COVID-19, so we really had to adapt quickly from physical to virtual events. And actually for us, it was also kind of a chance because we really increased the number of attendees for each event and from multiple countries. So we had about 100 participants for almost webinars. And again, we reached people from all different continents. So this was really quite crazy to see this enthusiasm. We kept a really stable rhythm despite the sanitary context with about 1 event per month. And we organized events in collaboration with other European funded projects such as MEA, Tiger, Ocean Demo, Marinai, but also FanBest, FluGIF, and Afloat. So you can see on the right side some examples of topics that we covered during the OPIN events. Some of them are quite technical, for instance, on mooring, on O&M. Some other are more on the funding opportunities, on environmental effects, and we had also some events about synergies with other sectors like hydrogen or aquaculture. So the upcoming, the next OPIN events for the 2 coming months are first a masterclass organized on 6th of October on OPEX modeling. Then there will be a webinar on standardization and certification on the 13th of October. There will be another webinar on how internationalization can support collaborative innovation, in particular with Plocken as one of the main speakers. So this will be very early November, and a bit later in November, there will be another webinar on consenting and social acceptance. So for most of them, registrations are already open, so you can check on the website and register for all of them. Again, our events are completely free, so do not hesitate to have a look and to register. I will now give the floor to Magnus for focus on the technology assessment process. And just before this, we'll have another Mentimeter question. So I will give you the floor and I will let you share your screen, Mark.
Thanks, Laura. So yeah, hello. My name's Magnus. I'm a project manager at the Offshore Renewable Energy Catapult, based in Glasgow, and I'm going to be talking about the technology assessment process today. Before we get started, I'm just going to do a quick Mentimeter just to try and gauge the flow of where people's opinions are on the technology assessment process. So I think Mark was going to share his screen and show you the question. So the question is, do you think a technology assessment would help with your technology development? So just to gauge where everyone's at. So I'll give you a minute to pop it in. Lots of yeses so far, which is good. Feel free to say no if you don't know as well. Or maybe it's not applicable to you as well, which is maybe just pop that in the don't know as well. So just give you another couple of seconds. A couple of don't knows, that's good. Perhaps you've not even heard of what a technology assessment process is yet as well. Don't be shy. Okay, that's good. So I'm getting the feeling that there's some technology developers in the room, and perhaps some who may not have heard of what a TAP is. So if I just share my screen and I can go into the presentation. Here we go. So hopefully you should all see my screen. And Laura, you can maybe just confirm that.
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks very much. So yeah, today I'm going to speak about technology assessment process and typically what a technology development journey looks like. I'll touch on what a technology assessment process is, the open tap process, and how to apply for an open tap. After myself, we've got Saber from CrackMap, who has gone through a technology assessment process through OPIN and has been working with OPIN and the Offshore Renewable Energy Catapult and Scottish Enterprise following this. So he'll be able to give you a sort of a lifetime or an actual sort of view of what it's like being on the TAP program. So I guess this is a standard sort of TRL journey, so technology readiness level overlaid with the commercial readiness index. So if you haven't seen this before, it's from the Australian Renewable Energy Agency. And it shows clearly how you can take your product to market in the renewables. So I've sort of split this into a few different ways. So TRL 1 to 3 is roughly the make it work. So that's your basic technology research, your proof of concept, and a bit of research to prove its feasibility. You've then got the make it survive. So this is sort of the valley of death element of technology development, and that's sort of improving on your general concept, moving into that development phase and thinking more about how you could put for instance, your marine energy, wave energy converter device together. And then you've got to go ahead and demonstrate that. So that can be in various different ways. They can be in a tank testing facility. It can be in a sort of like environment for your technology. You're going to then make it reliable, develop your components, etc., make it perform. And this is where you then start moving into the sort of commercial commercial element. So a bit of a commercial trial, small scale, scaling it up, and then make it affordable. And that's a big thing in the renewable energy industry. So that's the typical pathway. You could also think about it as R&D, demonstration phase, and then your commercial deployment as well. So that's a very typical way. But in the marine energy environment, in ocean energy technology, that's easier said than done, and there's lots of reasons for this. So a study by Weber in 2012 highlighted the technology readiness level, along with the technology performance level, and the cost of energy associated with that. So the blue dots on there is where you have a high TRL pathway and a low TPL, so the technology performance level, and that results in a higher cost of energy. And you can see that the change doesn't really change too much in terms of the performance level. Then you've got an increase in TPL at a high TRL stage, and it's difficult to make fundamental changes to your design at this point. It's quite costly. But finally, when you interject in the technology readiness level at a lower level, so 2 to 3, we know that the technology performance level can increase. And that's really what technology assessment process tries to do. So when it means that you can make design changes when it's easier, more flexible, and cheaper as well. So technology assessment is the assessment of a new and emerging ocean energy technology and service. It's based on evidence, so on technical reports, drawings, testing that's been conducted, and really we take a holistic view of the technology, look at its performance, its reliability, its survivability, its cost, etc. And we sort of have a look at it and score it and see what we think. We can examine a system or a subsystem, or we can even go down to a component level, depending on the amount of information that you have as well. So we like to split this into a few stages, and we like to do that in a specific way. So in order to ensure we have fairness and that those applying for a technology assessment are reviewed in a similar way, we ask everyone to complete an application, and we do a slight little fact-finding mission with them. We ask them, why are you doing TAP? What do you want to get out of it? There's the actual technical assessment part, which is an interview, and we'd ask you to present your technology to our technical team, who would make a judgment on the various elements of your technology, i.e. its performance, etc. And we score it, and we talk about how you could develop your technology in a slightly different way, or make changes. And it's really all about trying to raise that TPL at a much earlier stage in your development. Finally, there's a report and a sort of a feedback phase in the TAP. This is your report to keep. It's what you do. You do whatever you want with it. We tend to see that people use it for grant applications, investor readiness sort of packs, sort of introducing your technology to various different stakeholders. And the report generated tends to have sort of a general structure, methodology, technical viability, techno-economic competitive prospects, etc. And looks slightly at a development route. Also points you in the direction of how OPIN might be able to help you further. And really, if you don't take anything out of it, you take the networking opportunities that OPIN has with a wide sort of network that we have, and a wide consortium of project partners. So how do you go about applying for a TAP? So you can apply for a TAP if you're an SME. It's free SME within the Northwest Europe region. As I said, we would discuss with you design principles, opportunities to de-risk your onward development, and that route to commercialization. As Anna mentioned before, OPIN is looking to transfer lessons learned and knowledge sharing from different sectors, and quite often we see those who've been working in the oil and gas industry, for instance, coming to us with ideas about their technology, perhaps in sort of mooring systems, smart mooring systems, as an example, and saying how is this applicable? How is this applicable to the renewable energy industry? And we can take those technologies forward. The TAP is limited to a value of 2,000 euro as well. So a little bit of as a pointer, if you are wanting to submit a TAP application, the criteria looks at the strength of the scientific and technical approach that you take, the ability for you to competently carry out the project development, i.e. have you got a good team there, even if you're a one-person band, if you've got the technical competence there to take this forward, that's absolutely great. But also what your impact is, or your potential impact is to the ocean energy sphere. I've put applications links here, and hopefully Laura May will share the presentation slides with you. If you don't, it's all on the OPIN website under the Assess Your Technology tab, and the guidelines are all there for you as well. I think that wraps up my element of things. I'll pass over to Saber, who's going to walk through his element of his presentation. So I will stop sharing my screen and pass over to him.
Hey everyone, good afternoon. I'm just going to share my screen with you, and thank you so much, Magnus. And here we go. I hope you can see the full screen of my presentation.
Yes, perfect. We see. Thanks, Saber.
Thank you, Laura. Cheers. So yeah, so I'm Saber. I'm the founder and CEO of CrackMap, and I'm talking to you now from Glasgow. We are based in Glasgow. We are a Scottish startup, and so today what I'm going to do is I'm going to briefly talk about our experience about TAP report, collaborating with OPIN and ORE, and what I decided to do is just to give you a little bit background, who we are, where we are standing, what was our position per year joining, OPIN and going through the TAP report, how we went through it and what we gained and what we are doing now. So CrackMap is high-tech startup, and we are developing a non-contact spatial technology, which is a combination of artificial intelligence and fraction mechanics. And we aim to improve the analysis procedure for structural health monitoring. So this is a very typical problem in industry, that you can see the damages, but you don't know what's the extent of the damage, right, based on only the visual inspection. So you need to use alternative methods, physical interaction with the object, and or maybe destructive, tests to get more understanding of the extent of the damage. But what we are focusing is we're trying to fill the gap in industry by only one single image based on the crack surface. We try to tell you what's the extent of the damage. So this is an example of what its naked eye can see from a crack in a component, and what our software can see, what our algorithm can see. And our technologies, it's capable to predict this, a profile with less than 10% error. So obviously we are responding to industry demand, but the challenge initially for us was we got damages everywhere. There are lots of, many sectors that, we could apply this technology because it's very generic, but we were lost at the beginning. We didn't know how we should approach industry and which industry we need to really to start work. Obviously, wind energy it's very demanded these days, and it got very expensive assets. So we started to collaborate with ORE. We put in touch with ORE in 2019 through Business Gateway and Scottish Enterprise, and we start working with them, and we managed to secure a very small grant, and all those activity was per year joining to the TAP report and OPIN. So we managed to secure a small grant, but that was coincident with the incident of pandemic COVID, everybody needed to work from home. We tried to understand how we can work, and obviously for us it was very important to get access to some data. So what we decided to do is we decided to work with whatever we had in flat, and we started working with the foam. We tried even to mimic what we can see from a turbine blade. So we, even though we thought, okay, this is a turbine blade, this is a foam, this is a damage there, from different angle, different, focal lenses, etc. We took pictures. We tried to see if we can predict the algorithm and with a responsible and reasonable result. So that was our stage per year joining OPIN. So in 2000. It was end of, if I want to precise, September 2020, we got in touch with OPIN through Scottish Enterprise and ORE, and we started the process. So prior to that, we had the technology, we knew that it works. We done it in a very limited lab condition, but we didn't have approach how we can apply it. Apply it to the industry, how we can resolve it, how we can be precise, and how we can, engage with industry partners. So that was the time that it started going through the OPIN, tab process through OPIN. I know, and also Magnus described, the whole process. So we started with an initial application, and the whole process. I think it took something around 2 months, or around 2 months, the process that time. And we had a couple of meetings, technical board with few other experts, and we presented our idea and our technology, and we come up with some very constructive and effective suggestions. And then that was our starting point to getting engaged with the OPIN, and TAP report. And that was coincident with us to receive some grant from Scottish Enterprise, Scottish government, which helped us to extend the team, bringing more people in to help us with a unique expertise to help us to develop the technology, and we expanded our network as well. And also at the same time, with lots of contacts that we put in touch, through OPIN and TAP report, we get to more understanding how our technology in particular can help the industry. So, and that helped us to refine our goals and objectives as well. For example, we can more understanding of the existing data. So you may, inspect the data during, you get lots of data during the inspection process, but always you're wondering just from a single image, what's the extent of the damage below the surface? This is some things that we can, or algorithm can help. We, based on the discussion that we had with expert people in OPIN and ORE, we know that the scanning process, it may take few months from the time that the data is being collected by drone to the time that is the asset owner make a decision. While with our platform, we can reduce it down to a few minutes. And also, helping to implement, effective maintenance planning, and also expanding the life cycle with the confidence. If you know what is the extent of the damage in your component, let's say the turbine blade, you can apply and live it through the service and extend the life with more confidence. So through the OPIN and the support that we received, we managed to do industrial proof of concept as well. So for example, this is a demonstration what our platform is capable. So if you, for example, if you simply scan an object with your mobile phone, or it could be any type of high resolution camera, LiDAR technology, etc., we would be able to tell you straight away the 3D model of the object, and then try to tell you what is the extent of the damage. Based on the discussion that we had with OPIN and ORE, we managed to tailor a product also for wind turbine blade as well. So we got in touch with a Blyth Wind Turbine Center in England, and we are able to, we are working to detect the damage on a blade using the drone footages, and then based on those footages we would be able to tell what is the the damage profile, what is the extent of the damage, how critical is that. So this is the project that we are working at the moment with them, and the TAP report and help us to refining or understanding about the industry, try to understand how we can help and how we can implement our technology to the sector. And obviously that would help us in terms of going through other funding applications and try to secure some funding, getting in touch with the investors, because obviously we had the opportunity to show them, look, the technology is applicable, it works, and we are working with some other industrial partner to implement it, and also getting in touch with other industry partners. We were desperate to see how we want to implement it, because what we are developing is as a unique technology that we tend to do it as like a service provider. So we tend to not to do any inspection procedure ourselves. All we need is just the data from industry partners to make more understanding of it. So now this week we were so pleased to release the beta version of our software. So you can go to our website through the crackmap.com or Elosta, which is the name of our software, and start using the platform. And please get in touch if you want to get a voucher. So we are happy to issue you with a voucher that you can start using our platform, and get in touch with us as well, just to see how we can work together, and how we can implement the technology, and we can work both images and videos. So yeah, please do get in touch with us. We are happy to help, and also we still need the help. So we are happy to collaborate and build the network to implement our technology. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Saber. Thanks for the presentation. Actually, yes, I think we have time for one or two questions. So the first one for you is, are you also able to report the lifespan of the structure based on the crack?
So yeah, this is something that we are working on that, and that really depends on the basically the environment of the object where the application is, and based on the procedure that we're following, yes, we would be able to help you to tell, okay, if the design line of the component is, for example, for 20 years, based on the damages that you have already into a structure without doing destructive testing or any expensive procedure, we would be able to tell you how long we can extend it. Yes.
Okay, thanks. And another question for you. Have you looked at investigating cracks on mooring chains?
This is some things that we haven't done it yet, but obviously we are very happy to do that. So if anyone got some data or some link connection network, we are happy to get involved and start working on that. Yes, but practically, yes, we would be able to do it. Yes.
Okay, in the same direction, could it be applied underwater with poor visibility? So I guess it's more or less linked to your previous answer.
No, it's all right. So in terms of electrical cables, as long as we know the condition of the material and the boundary conditions and those parameters that we needed for our unique algorithm, yes, we would be able, but I can't really comment on that to say yes or no, definitely, because we need to go through into detail to say how the condition has been defined over there and how we can help with that. But I'm happy to discuss that in more detail.
Okay, thanks. And another question we'll take now, more general question. I think Leslie, you might answer that one. Leslie Magnus, the UK partners. How can OPIN support collaborative working inclusive of UK companies, institutions following the challenge, following Brexit?
Okay, so For companies in the UK, the situation is as it was before Brexit for the OPIN project. So UK companies can still receive TAPs, they can still lead on CIGs and can still apply for travel expenses in Scotland if that's relevant. So at the moment, the UK companies involved in OPIN have the same benefits as the rest of the partner organisations.
Thank you.
And I'm perhaps also just add there, Laura, if we've got time, just to say that if you do conduct a TAP and you're a UK-based SME, you know, that's all, almost see that as the sort of the entry into the discussion, and we do want to support companies going forward. And if you're in the UK and we do the technology assessment process, and we think there's value in working together on something else, and we can look at that you know, further down the line. So, you know, things, I think Brexit hasn't changed that, as Leslie says, with OPIN. We're still open to working with everyone.
Yeah, and definitely we have lots of UK members in OPIN members. A lot of them are from UK, so yeah, they can still benefit from our activities. No change on this. Okay, we'll now move on to the session dedicated to collaborative innovation groups. So I will give the floor to Leslie, Yaron, and Jennifer. And Leslie, for you first, I will let you share your screen.
Thank you. Okay, so is that available to view?
Yes, perfect. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our OPIN Symposium. I am Leslie Doyle, and I work with Scottish Enterprise and have been involved with the OPIN project since it began in 2019. And today I'm going to give you a short introduction to collaborative innovation groups. So what is a collaborative innovation group? So a collaborative innovation group, or CIG, it's one of the services that we offer to members of OPIN. And what we say is, if you have an issue or a challenge that you're experiencing related to ocean energy that can't be solved by your business alone, a CIG will allow you to work with other organisations on finding a solution. In terms of the total level of support available, so we don't offer a grant as such to your organisation, but we do provide in-kind support, either from OPIN partners or from Aquaterra, who are our supplier for the CIGs. So no financial contribution is required from those of you that wish to take part in a CIG, but we must stress that if you are going to become involved, please make sure that you have the staff and resources available to participate in any tasks, and it just benefits the whole group. In terms of areas that we look to approve projects in, they would be in wave, tidal and floating platforms. I'll quickly go over the core principles of the CIGs and the CIG journey. So to begin with, and we've mentioned collaboration a lot, but it really is about collaboratively working together to solve issues. So once your CIG is together, we will then look at a structured development pathway focusing on key areas. So we will look at what is it you want to focus on, what is it you're looking to get out of the CIG, and we'll move on to the outputs. So we'll have clear metrics to demonstrate how the CIG was successful for you and what you want to do next. And the outcomes of that can be, you may wish to start up a project within your organisation internally, or you may then wish to go forward and apply for either UK funding if you're in the UK, or national funding elsewhere, or European funding going forward. So some examples of topics that we have looked at before in terms of CIGs. So we look at technology challenges, for example, power grid transmission, grid connection. We also look at economic and supply chain challenges, such as levelized cost of energy analysis and anything about the industry and supply chain. Also regulatory and environmental challenges, such as environmental impact assessment and monitoring. There are lots of benefits in addition to what I've previously mentioned about being involved in CIGs. So they are a good opportunity to explore opportunities for new products, services, entering new markets. It's also good to expand your network nationally and internationally and gain that complementary skills and expertise and make use of that increased networking. And as I mentioned, a step to national and EU funding calls. There's also other follow-on support for CIGs available. So other mechanisms that you may wish to explore are other European projects and seeing what their offering is. And I've put an example here of 2 projects that we've worked closely with of the Marine Energy Alliance and Ocean Demo. You may also wish to contact your OPIN partner organisation in your area, and the contact details can be found on the OPIN website. Most of you on the call will already be familiar with the Enterprise Europe network. They are a great source in terms of brokerage services, helping you find people to work with, and they also offer events and networking. So we have 2 types of CIGs that we offer within OPIN. So I will talk about the OPIN-led CIGs shortly and begin with the SME-led CIGs. So this type of project will be led by one SME along with our supplier Aquaterra. And what happens is you all work together in collaboration with other SMEs, research organisations or large organisations within other OPIN project areas. And the lead SME will be supported by the OPIN partner in the region as and when appropriate. The supplier will also work with you to scope out the idea for your project in more detail, will help to facilitate the CIG and also help you to deliver your project. And there will also be support with the preparation of the final CIG report and summary report, which is required for OPIN. The OPIN-led CIGs, they differ in that they are led by an OPIN partner. So they should still include at least 2 SMEs from 2 different areas within the OPIN partnership region. OPIN partners will lead on these CIGs, and they will work with you to attract interest from other companies who may also wish to explore this theme further. And the OPIN partner will also be responsible for ensuring that that paperwork is completed. So I've spoken a little bit about the CIG eligibility as we have progressed. Just to emphasise, a minimum of 2 SMEs. Large companies and research organisations are able to participate, although they can't lead on the SME or OPIN-led SIG. And cross-border, so members from a minimum of 2 OPIN regions. We also recommend cross-sector expertise as well, and we're particularly keen to see supply chain companies get involved in projects. Okay, so now I'll pass over to Mark again, who will provide the link to the 3rd question that we're going to do, and that is, would you be interested in participating in a CIG around any of the following topics? So we've got operating standards requirements, powering aquaculture, grouted foundations, floating and fixed bottom installation, optimising materials and structural health monitoring. I should say that while you are voting, if you have any ideas for a CIG which is not listed on the Mentimeter board, then please contact us and we will be able to advise on how to move forward with a potential CIG. Okay, so I'm seeing so far that the most popular option is floating and fixed bottom installation. Okay, so thank you all for voting, and those who, and we've had some interest in optimizing materials and structural health monitoring. Okay, that's great, thank you. So those of you that have expressed interest in those topics, we will have your details, and we will be able to follow up with you regarding that. If you have any further questions on CIGs that you think of after this event is over, please contact us at OPIN, that's OPIN, at seai.ie. So now I'd like to pass on to my colleague Iron, who is going to provide a case study example of a CIG which recently took place, which was OPIN-led.
Thank you, Leslie. I will start sharing the screen now. And if that's okay, you should now be able to see my presentation in full screen. So a good afternoon to everyone from me as well. My name is Jeroen Tak, and I work for Ciris as part of the OPIN Consortium. And I have indeed, as an OPIN partner, been leading the CIG on corrosion monitoring. And I want to present to you a little bit how this has worked so that you get more tangible feeling for how a CIG can look and what you can get out of that. So this CIG, which is an open-led CIG, focused on the topic of corrosion monitoring. But how did we come up to that topic? So first of all, we basically identified a topic where we thought that this could be interesting for the wider value chain, and that topic was corrosion. Corrosion is still a very broad topic, even for offshore renewable energy devices. So we had a workshop where we invited everybody from the OPIN network to speak about their ideas, what could be relevant topics for corrosion, just to try and identify a number of elements that could be of interest. We then sent out a letter of interest to all of the participants to the workshop, asking them to indicate clearly what topics of interest could be. And based on that, we tried to bring together a number of all of the ideas that came forward into, let's say, a few general topics. And the topic where we found most interest was on the use of sensors to monitor corrosion, so corrosion monitoring. So that's the moment where we decided, okay, we have a number of people here who are interested in a single topic. Let us build a collaborative innovation group around it. And at that point, this being an open-led CIG, we started with building an action plan. So we drafted the action plan, sent this again to all of the people who had been participating in the workshop, asking them if they would be interested in participating to this CIG. Obviously, not everybody was interested, but with a group of people that was interested, we had then a kickoff meeting of the Collaborative Innovation Group to adapt the action plan a bit so that it suited to everybody's specific needs and requirements, and then finally approve the action plan so that we could get started with the Collaborative Innovation Group. Just to give you a bit of a feeling of what you can do, at least in this CIG, what we did is to first identify needs and expectations with respect to corrosion monitoring, review also the state-of-the-art current practices in offshore wind, and through this work and building the report, we eventually came up to identifying also technology gaps, barriers to the implementation of corrosion monitoring, and finally use what we have learned throughout the CIG to also find opportunities to start a follow-up project, a demonstration project. In practice, what did we do? So obviously we first had a workshop, a kickoff meeting with all of the participants. And after that, we had interviews with all of the partners of the Collaborative Innovation Group to collect input from everybody on their point of view on corrosion monitoring. Could be needs and expectations. It is also people from the value chain providing sensor equipment, universities doing development on corrosion monitoring. So all of these inputs we collected through interviews. Then we also had a public survey to identify and from a broader audience needs and expectations with respect to corrosion monitoring. And then we also received written input from all of the partners to collect in what is then finally the CIG report. And based on this report, all of the information that we identified, all of the gaps, also technology gaps that we identified, we had a closing workshop and an attempt to define a follow-up project. So then in terms of the reward that you get out of such a collaborative innovation group, first of all, in this specific collaborative innovation group, it was very valuable market insight from the surveys and the interviews that we have done. And we have seen that there is a very large expected potential for corrosion monitoring. So a lot of people and companies have the feeling that this could be a very good technology towards the future to use and implement in structural health monitoring. But we also see that although it is expected to be able to reduce cost, that in fact it is only used in a limited number of cases. If we then look at what are really the objectives for corrosion monitoring, then we found indeed remaining useful life prediction, R&D, design validation. This is a bit what we expected, what we know also from the state of the art that is possible with corrosion monitoring. However, from the survey, we also saw that there are a lot of questions with respect to using corrosion monitoring and coating degradation monitoring for O&M optimization, which is something that the current state of the art of corrosion monitoring is not yet fully capable of delivering. So that's very interesting insight, and it also provides routes for further development to be done also on this topic. Then, of course, there's also the input from the state of the art, really technological insight on the different types of monitoring technology that exist, and all of this information is collected then in the report that will also be made public. There was also a lot of information collected on barriers and opportunities. So if I talk about barriers here, it's really barriers to the implementation of corrosion monitoring. So why is there a large potential, but why isn't it used that much yet? And basically, we saw really two groups of topics here, or two types of barriers. First, there are the technological barriers. So the questions on what type of sensors to use, how reliable are the sensors, but also the non-existence of certain sensors to detect or monitor specific corrosion phenomena, like, for example, pitting corrosion, where no sensors exist yet. So that is really technological barriers. And then on the other hand, you have also economic barriers, being that the business case for corrosion monitoring is not entirely clear, first of all, because of a lack of information on the cost of corrosion, but also a lack of information on what the value is that corrosion monitoring can really bring to your assets. And then in the last step, which is basically the last workshop of the project, we really worked on project ideation. And the first important aspect of that is, of course, building of the network, what we did in the collaborative innovation group. So you really bring together a group of people that want to work on a specific topic. And this is, of course, the first big step in taking steps towards the future, to building this network. And then with this group of people that we brought together, we really had a kind of a brainstorming session based on the report and all the information that we collected, to really generate ideas of what could we do in a future project, and then also define a future project concept. And for this specific topic of corrosion and coating degradation monitoring for offshore renewable energy devices, there are a number of elements that we feel should be integrated in the project in order to take this forward. First was to make a list of monitoring solutions according to the application that you have in mind. To also develop new solutions for monitoring, for example, of pitting corrosion, and then to also demonstrate the monitoring solutions that are selected as being critical together with these new developments in a kind of a demonstration project that would then lead to the generation of a high quality public data set, a data set that then can also be used to really develop a general framework for data interpretation and predictive modeling, so that the data that you collect with corrosion monitoring can also really lead to decision support. So that is really on the technological side what needs to be done in a project to really support the uptake of corrosion monitoring. On the economic side, as I mentioned before, there is also really building the business case, where in this project we would also like to invest time in that to really collect the data and information on cost of corrosion that is necessary to build this business case and make corrosion monitoring more attractive. Finally, of course, we need a funding framework to do this, because we're speaking here really about a collaborative project which benefits the entire industry. And then the Horizon Europe projects are obviously an interesting way forward. Then we are searching here for other groups that are maybe developing a Horizon Europe project where the part on corrosion monitoring could be integrated in. So this is also a shout out to everybody who is here today and who has an interest in the topic of corrosion monitoring. If you are thinking on developing a project, or if you are aware of a project being developed where this part on corrosion monitoring could fit into, don't hesitate to contact us so that we can take this project forward. So finally, I think what is really clear, whether it's an open-led CIG or an SME-led CIG, is that you really need somebody to pull the project forward. And if it's an open-led CIG, that's an open partner who is doing that to really keep the project going. And then the results will be made public, which is also what will be done with the report of the current CIG. If it's an SME-led CIG, then the results can stay more behind closed doors. So that's it regarding the CIG on corrosion monitoring. To conclude my talk, I just have one more slide to introduce you to a new CIG that will be launched in October, which is a collaborative innovation group on corrosion of concrete for offshore renewable structures. So really the corrosion of the rebar or reinforcement in concrete, looking at alternative rebar materials, alternative concrete formulations to reduce the ingress of corrosive species. Also, again, looking at inspection and monitoring. So if you have an interest in the topic of corrosion of concrete structures, then also feel free to contact us. There is still room and time to participate in this collaborative innovation group. So you can definitely contact us if you have an interest in this topic. So with that, I like to thank you for your attention. And you have my contact information in the slides if you have an interest in one of these CIGs. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeroen. So now Jennifer will introduce the SME-led CIGs. Jennifer, I give you the floor.
Thank you, Laura May. Sorry for the delay there. I was just trying to find the unmute button. I hope that you can see my slides. I'm just going to go into full screen mode. Okay, I'm sure you'll shout if you're not seeing that clearly or if you're not hearing me clearly. So I'm going to give a very short presentation on a CIG that we have underway at the moment. And yeah, firstly, to introduce myself, my name is Jennifer Fox and I work for Aquaterra. We're a marine energy consultancy company based in Orkney in Scotland. And we're working really closely with Leslie at Scottish Enterprise and all of the OPIN partners to develop and to coordinate the SME-led collaborative innovation groups, or CIGs. So I'm going to just talk to you a little bit about one of the CIGs that we've been working on recently, and this is looking at floating solar technology demonstration. So as you've heard, and just to remind everyone about what the CIGs can be, and particularly a kind of a different example to what we've just heard from Jeroen as to how a CIG can come about. So in this case, The company that we're working with primarily is a floating solar company called HelioRec, and they have been through the TAP process, the technology assessment process, with the ORE Catapult, and also getting lots of great insider advice and expertise, as you've heard from Magnus today, working with DMEC, Cirrus, and WEAMEC as well, going through that TAP process. And from the TAP process, they had some really useful key findings and recommendations and insights around the floating solar technology that HelioRec are developing and coming up to demonstrating quite soon. And from that, it was seen that using those key findings and recommendations could be a really useful way of developing a CIG to take those recommendations forward onto the next stage, and also to bring a group together with HelioRec of other SMEs who either have similar challenges or potentially have solutions that they could provide, and to bring those various different people together so that they can brainstorm and have an opportunity for discussion, brainstorming, and coming up with ideas, solutions, and ultimately networking and building relationships between those SMEs so that they can work together and solve some of the key issues and challenges that were brought to the fore as part of the TAP. And the other thing about it is, through the OPIN program, the OPIN network, as you've heard today, there's over 400 members that we were able to utilize to build 3 CIGs, or collaborative innovation groups. So using HelioRec and working with the TAP process as a starting point, we were then able to access the network of these 400 members, of which there's a huge amount of expertise and knowledge and innovation and data behind that network. And so through that process, we built 3 different CIGs, 3 different groupings, if you like, of people who were interested in being part of this process and coming in to bring their knowledge and expertise into the group and have some opportunities for discussion and brainstorming and challenge solving. And what we have done and what we are still working on is building key themes or focuses of each of those 3 CIG groupings. And there's key things within the specific elements of the floating solar technology design, such as the basis of design criteria, and specifically the mooring system, the procedures and methodologies around installation, around operation and maintenance, and around decommissioning, and also the electrical design. So a couple of key different focus areas for our different groupings to look at within the CIGs. And so I really just wanted to demonstrate how simple the process can be, and the process that we are implementing within this example of CIGs is very, very straightforward. As I've mentioned, we worked with the existing information that there was from the TAP. And from that, we were able to work with the companies involved and guide them on the application form and action plan to deliver the key themes that I've mentioned and to build the CIG around those key themes. There was then, once all of that paperwork was put in place, it made it a much more open situation for those companies involved to be able to share data and information between them and have it be a safe environment to do so. And from there has been preliminary meetings between those partners in order to agree those key themes and to agree agendas for further CIG sessions and brainstorming sessions, and also to make sure that all of the data and information shared is there and ready for them. In the interim, then, there has been, where data or information has been shared, there was an opportunity for each of the partners to go away separately and to review those data and to be able to come into the key CIG session. So I'm looking at number 5 here now. Come back to the key CIG session with reviewed data. And so they'll have an agenda decided, they'll have some key questions that they want to put to the group as a result of being able to review those data and have those preliminary conversations as to what they want to get out of the CIG session as a whole. So that session is kind of the key portion, and that can be one, workshop style session in an afternoon, or it can be more than that. And then finally, there'll be some, tying up of loose ends and making sure that any outstanding questions or any last pieces of information are resolved between the CIG partners. And I suppose the key point to this, in a similar way to what Jeroen was talking about, is that the process is guided and led by the SMEs that are involved, but there is a lot of support, facilitation, coordination available from the OPIN team, obviously, as well as access to the OPIN partners, a lot of expertise and knowledge within the OPIN partners themselves, and also within the wider OPIN network as well, as I've talked about. So that was a very quick example. I'll leave it there and I'll pass back to you, Laura May. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thanks for this presentation. So we will not take questions now on the collaborative innovation group, but please type them in the Q&A box if you have any, and we will take them at the end of the annual symposium. So don't hesitate if you have questions on the generic CIG support, on the corrosion example given by Jeroen, or the SME-led CIG example given by Jennifer. And now I give the floor to David for the long-term session.
Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me well. My name is David Garcia. I'm a project manager for SC, Scottish Enterprise, as well as Leslie. I'm just going to try to magnify my slide that is in presentation mode. So hopefully you can see it well. So now I'm going to introduce the long-term element of the symposium. And the long term is a work package that is led by Scottish Enterprise, because the OPIN project concludes in June 2022. It's a piece of analysis and research to provide guidance on how the OPIN partners can ensure the legacy of the project after completion, in order to make sure that all the good work that has been done until today, is not lost, and there is some sort of follow-up in the future, because there is a desire from the OPIN partners to explore options for the continuation of the OPIN initiative. So that's why we has carry out a piece of work and research to Optimat, who has done a very detailed analysis to recommend OPIN partners and members some option for the longevity of the OPIN project. So now I'm going to pass over Mark Morrison from Optimat, who is going to present a very brief summary of the report, basically the options that are open for the OPIN partners for discussion for the longevity of the OPIN project. So over to you, Mark.
Okay, thanks, David. Appreciate that. Hi, everyone. My name is Mark. So as David said, I work for Optimat, which was responsible for delivering this study. And really just a brief overview of the study. So it's looking at how OPIN can secure legacy for the project after it finishes funding next year, and a number of different elements of that, which I won't go into detail just now, but will become more apparent as I go through my slides. And how we did this? Well, first of all, we engaged with the OPIN partners, and the partners, as I'm sure everybody's aware from hearing the different presentations, are all funded, structured in different ways and have different objectives. And some of them are active in ocean energy completely, others are more cross-sectoral in their nature. We also conducted an online survey with OPIN members. As Laura May mentioned earlier, there's over 400 of these members, and we had some more in-depth interviews with a selected number of those. And then we looked at other relevant initiatives, including those that had become self-sustaining, to get some ideas as to how they achieve this. So this provides an overview of the members that were engaged either through the survey or the interviews, so 46 in total, covering a range of different types of organizations and a whole spectrum of different regions that OPIN covers. I'll start off by summarizing the partners' perspectives. So partners on the whole felt that OPIN had provided them with an opportunity for mutual learning and to translate their other experiences into the ocean energy sector, and because of that strengthened their capabilities here. They felt that the events had gone well and there was evidence that there was cross-sectoral opportunities for members, and that's already been mentioned earlier today. And one other thing that has been mentioned during the interviews and the surveys was the opportunity that members got to bid for European Space Agency funding through OPIN. They've all got an interest in the network continuing because of the added benefit for each partner organisation and for the companies in the regions that they represent. However, they recognise that some aspects haven't gone so well. Partly that's because of COVID. That has affected everybody's ability to engage and to collaborate, and partly other issues. And one of the things was the CIGs. And as you saw in the last presentations from Jeroen and from Jennifer, they have taken steps towards addressing the implementation of CIGs. There's also a recognition that a lot of the companies that are supported through OPIN are startups and micro SMEs, and they need additional support. From the members' perspective, well, the first and foremost was the network is very strong. It's very broad, large, covers lots of different sectors, lots of different types of organisation, and is international in its perspectives. The events and market and technology insights were rated very highly. So we've heard already today about the masterclasses, and they were seen as fantastic opportunity for members to get insight into new markets, new technologies. And several members had indicated that they had tangible outcomes. So the TAPs were seen as a clear benefit for companies, and we heard from Saber, who talked eloquently about that. But also business-to-business relationships, sharing information, and new opportunities to collaborate in different projects were all seen as outcomes of the OPIN network so far. However, the real issue for members, and partly or mainly because most of them are micro SMEs, is a lack of time to collaborate. So that's a real constraint for them. And there's also, again, because a lot of them are very young companies, real collaborative outcomes and opportunities for funding. So that means, once you've had some engagement, how do you access funding to make sure that that continues? There needs to be, or members felt there needed to be support for that. There was also, and again, this has been touched upon by Laura May earlier on, a sense that the network was very passive. It wasn't proactive in going out and engaging with members, and that the online database was very two-dimensional. It didn't have much information about members and an opportunity for members to directly communicate and interact with each other. It comes as no surprise to anybody, but most of the survey responses, members wouldn't pay for services. However, when we went into this in a bit more depth in the interviews, it was clear that members would pay for services if they had a direct impact on their business. So they tended to be much more about business development activities, helping members commercialize their services. It's also clear that members want to have more member-driven bottom-up activities, allowing them to engage directly with other members rather than going through open partners necessarily all the time. And there was a need, because members are very small, to have a one-stop shop. So not for OPIN to necessarily provide lots of additional business services, but to provide signposting and access to other services that are needed by members. Some of the larger companies that we spoke to felt that they were, to a certain extent, being disadvantaged here, and they would welcome additional services that were more tailored towards their needs. So that would be assistance in commercialization, assistance in accessing investors for later stage funding, etc. And then there was a sense that members would like OPIN to act as almost like an honest broker. So to introduce them to potential partners, customers, investors, to act not as a guarantor, but as a trusted intermediate to allow them to make those connections. We then looked at a number of different initiatives, mainly in ocean energy, but also in other renewable energies and in other sectors where there were useful lessons to learn. And I won't go into any detail here, but really to say that these covered industry associations, strategic research networks, innovation networks, and regional economic development networks. So what we would like to do now is have another quick Mentimeter question, where we really want to ask you how important each of the following are for the future of open. Now, we've done this slightly differently from other questions in that everybody has 100 points that they can spend against this. So you can choose to distribute that across all of the 6 options here. But if you feel that from your perspective, an interactive member database or training is the most important, you can equally put all 100 points in here. And this allows the open members, the open partners, to understand where they should be focusing efforts going forward. What is going to be the most important to members in a future iteration of Open? Okay. Give it a few more moments.
So if needed, I put again in the chat the address and the code if you need to connect again, www.menti.com.
It's at the top of the screen as well, Laura.
Exactly. Yeah.
Good. So see TAPS, interactive member database. Good. Okay. I will leave that in the background so people can keep answering that, but I will move back to the presentation since we're short of time. So you can still keep answering that, but I'll put it back to presentation now. So from this analysis of partners, interviews, and other relevant networks, we performed a SWOT analysis. And this summarizes it. So the strengths we've covered, I think other people have covered in their presentations, but the cross-sector and multi-country connections can't be emphasized enough. You know, lots of members that we spoke to really welcomed the opportunity to engage with others outside their sector. So Sabre is a fantastic example of that, but also to see what was happening in other countries and other regions that they wouldn't be able to do. The weaknesses, well, for Open itself, there are few potential income generating services. So that is a concern going forward to a future Open. There's also the different capacities and drivers of different partners, which is a strength and a weakness because we need to accommodate that in a future Open. There's generally a lack of evidence of impact, even though when we hear these presentations, when we talk to members and partners, we can see there's impact. There's lack of evidence of that, which is difficult then to demonstrate to political leaders and other potential members. And as I mentioned, too passive. In terms of opportunities, brokerage is a real opportunity. It's a large network. To understand members better, to understand why they joined, what their capacities are, what they want to get out of it, can really foster some member-to-member collaboration and better member-to-partner integration. There's an opportunity to merge with other initiatives. So Leslie mentioned, strong connections with Ocean Demo and MEA. There's opportunities to do that and to broaden the range of support that Open can provide. The threats are that there's a lot of activities in this area. There's a lot of projects that are funded through Interreg that are supporting ocean energy, renewable energy, other related fields over a short period of time. There's also a threat because each of the members, particularly those that are funded by a public agency, have got their own national priorities that they need to align with any future activity. And there's a major threat that we've heard about all the fantastic services that are provided through Open. If there wasn't the funding available, then those services would suffer, and that would reduce impact. So in terms of key issues, I suppose that the main issue is, a lack of clarity as to where funding is going to come from. It's clear from the members that they're not willing en masse to pay for services or even to pay a nominal membership fee. So this means that public funding would need to be explored more. But the public funding options may be restricted with the current membership partnership. For example, the UK as it stands is not eligible for Interreg funding, which is the most obvious and probably the most relevant source of funding for OPIN to continue. As I mentioned, it's difficult for OPIN to continue delivering the current services without funding, and in particular without EU funding, because without EU funding, there's not that cross-regional support. It then relies much more on what national programs, regional programs would support, and that support is going to realistically go towards supporting organisations within their own regions. If it wants to extend, particularly to take account of some of the aspects raised by larger enterprises, then that will require a different approach to the current Interreg project. Here, I will again not go into any great depth. This information is all available in the report that's been produced. But just to say that there are two sort of broad ranges or two sort of main avenues of support. So one would be through funded services where people pay to access services, and the other one would be through other sort of direct funding. And within services, we've divided this up into sort of three broad areas. So advocacy, which is something that organisations such as Ocean Energy Europe perform really well, and business support activities, which is where OPIN is active in terms of brokerage, partially in terms of the CIGs, in terms of technology assessment in the TAPs, but can do a lot more in terms of other activities like access to facilities and infrastructure, acting as a broker, acting or giving access to accelerator programs, and then information, which is what OPIN does very well through conferences and webinars, but could improve in terms of the web portal that's been mentioned already. In terms of direct funding, well, the easiest way to do that, probably the lowest value, is directly from the partner organisations that might provide some core funding to provide basic services. That might be easier for the publicly funded agencies, organisations to do, not so easy for some of the other partners. Then there's more alignment with national programmes. So that could be, again, through Scottish Enterprise, through Innovate UK, through the French national funding programmes, whatever, and it could be attributed to individual partners, individual regions based on their the proportional of activity in that region, investment in research and development or national turnover. Issue with that is it's difficult to agree in priorities. Then there's EU funding, which will be similar to what's happened already, but it's not a permanent solution. It could be membership fees, which I've mentioned is not an easy thing for any organisation to do. There could be partnering with another organisation that offers complementary services, and that would require added value to be identified for both partnering organisations, and it still needs to find an additional source of funding. Then there's two that are perhaps outliers, but still something to consider, which are investment funding, where OPIN seeks to work closely with venture capitalists or angel investors and use the OPIN network, which, like we say, has got a lot of high potential startups to provide that pipeline to investors. Or there's public-private procurement of innovation, where public and private sectors come together to say, okay, right, we need to achieve a certain price per kilowatt hour coming from ocean energy, and we're going to use the network to help achieve that, and that might help support some of the activities within the network. Again, specific activities just with the investment funding, but a means of support there. And the conclusion we came from this was really the best opportunity going forward for OPIN was a hybrid model. It provides flexibility to OPIN in terms of the timing of different activities and the responsibilities of different partners for these. So that would combine one or more of the longer term funding option with income from services, and it reduces this reliance on one specific income stream. But the fact is, if you're using multiple different sources of income, then you need to have dedicated resource to manage that and still deliver services. So what I'll do over the remaining few slides is talk about 4 strategic options that we've come up with for OPIN. And the most basic is that OPIN, as it stands, ceases to exist. It's either merges with another organization, or it's subsumed by another organization. So this is potentially the lowest cost, but not necessarily the easiest. So the other organization would have a longer term or more secure funding model. There's no point in OPIN merging with something else that is a short-term project, for example. But the issue is that you need to agree terms and conditions for transfer. So that means all the members of OPIN would have to agree to that, how their information might be shared. There would have to be some sort of arrangement of what benefits the new organization would get. Would they get access to lots more paying members? What benefits would the existing members of OPIN get from this? Would they have access to additional services? Would they get a reduced membership fee, etc., things like that. Another issue is that, yes, that might allow OPIN to continue in terms of resources it's built up, but there probably will be little role for partners in the merged network, and there'll be loss of control of the long-term direction of the network. So another option would be what we've termed OPIN Lite. So this really just focuses on core services and activities that can be more readily supported by regional and national agencies. So things that are really about putting people in place rather than funding expensive programs. It would also be a format that would encourage members to play a stronger role. It would use existing mechanisms already available in public agencies of partner regions to support the members, but there would be limited service options. So, for example, there may not be the TAPs, there may not be masterclasses with external people brought in. And a big issue with this is for the public agencies, yes, there's an opportunity to continue. For the partners that require an income stream, no, difficult to see how they can continue. And if there's a reduced number of services, there's a possibility of losing members. Third option is really not quite the status quo, but open to continuation of EU funding. OPIN continues to deliver existing services, but it extends to other regions, so it broadens its scope maybe to the Atlantic coast of Spain and Portugal, or to the North Sea Scandinavian countries. It could deliver new services, so access to test sites, for example, supporting members to submit funding applications. And while it's doing all this, it's testing these services, it's looking at how these services might translate into a viable commercial service future. So for the future, so a future revenue stream for OPIN. By doing this, by securing EU funding, then there's the avoidance of needing to align regional priorities. But this is a bit of a minefield. Interreg may be closed off. EU funding from Horizon Europe can be good for specific aspects of this, but not for all of the things that OPIN might want to do. And then a final option, calling this OPIN Max, is combining a number of public and private funding sources to deliver services. So this potentially covers the whole value chain, so it addresses some of the issues that larger companies have, where they're really focused on the commercial aspects rather than necessarily the technical technology development. So we could have public funding for existing services and private funding directed more to support closer to market activities. There may be fees for additional services that are more commercially orientated, but the whole thing is going to be more complex to manage. And because of the complexity, There might be potential conflicts of interest between different funders and competing priorities for partners in delivering these. So what we've done here is summarize this, because we're going to ask you a question in a minute about this, and basically what each of these different options might be. So merger subsumed is a sort of basic option going forward, doesn't necessarily need any funding. Open light is generally funding coming direct from partners themselves, and that provides limited numbers of services. Open 2 is accessing EU and other public funding, so that allows the network to do slightly more. Open Max is EU public funding and private investment or private funding, which allows even more. And what we would like you to do now is to think of each of these different options separately. And if, for example, we were to have, will I flip to the Mentimeter screen? If we were to have just merged, or just open light, or just open 2, or just open max, how likely would you be to use that? Would you be very unlikely to use it? Would you be very likely? It gives a sense of how important each on their own is in isolation of the others. Okay. Give a few more minutes or moments in this. Okay, seeing that merged is not polling highly, open light some, open 2 is seen as most important. Open max, yeah, open max is obviously a very attractive option. Like I said, it's the most difficult to implement. So as before, given the time, we want to have some time for discussion. I will continue with the presentation, but I will leave that slide open so you can continue to answer it. And what we've recommended is open light as the base model. But we don't see open light as the objective for open. We see open light, we're going back more to this hybrid model that I mentioned earlier. So open light is really the foundation. If we can secure some funding from partner organizations, for example, that helps basically oil the wheels and keep open going. And then additional funding can be sought from other sources. So for example, Horizon Europe. I think it was Jeroen mentioned the CIG on corrosion monitoring, and now looking to build up some support to put in a bid towards Horizon Europe funding. That's the sort of thing that would fit well with open light plus additional activities, because the Horizon Europe funding would be for a specific activity to develop, you know, an area of interest to a selected number of open members. But also there needs to be, and this is, Laura May mentioned this right at the start, you know, developing the online tools, making the database, the forum much more interactive, much more informative, you know, to start engaging the members and saying, okay, right, we need to have some more bottom-up activities here. Filing a brokerage service, so that's encouraging more bilateral links between members and partners, and then between facilitated by partners, members to, say, test facilities, to investors, to other potential partners. It's also about engaging with regional and national agencies to see how open can align more with their strategies to make sure that there's an opportunity beyond June next year for national programs to come in and support open. And it's engaging with other organizations. So organizations such as Ocean Energy Europe, which has shown interest in some of the activities that Open is doing that they don't possess, they don't have those capabilities, and could add value to both organizations. And we feel that, you know, by doing this, that the Open partnership would have a much broader range of resources at its disposal that are all timed and structured in different ways, making it more flexible in how it works with the community and more resilient. So that it's not getting to the end of a funding and it's all over. So like I say, having the open light with the baseline funding allows some sort of continuity with these other activities being brought in as and when they can be. And the final question we have is just a free text, and that is an opportunity for everybody present today to say, right, is there anything missing that you haven't heard today, either from this presentation or the earlier presentations, that you think OPIN should be considering when making their decision on future OPIN, so OPIN beyond June next year? Or maybe everything is perfect. Maybe it's answered everybody's questions. Oh, good. That's probably a partner. Okay, yeah. I think that is more international. It's an opportunity for extending the network. I think, you know, OPIN is well recognized internationally, so there is good opportunity there. I don't know personally about the workshops, but I don't see there being any issues. Graduates joining workshops. Wider applicability, global examples. Yeah, I think this will come out more from the database. We've talked a lot about, most of the members are within Europe, but there are members all over the globe. They're in 30 different countries. I think from memory, 12 of those are outside Europe. Yeah, better marketing and explanation of purpose. That's something that should come out of the restructuring of the database. STEM engagement, I'm assuming that means engaging with schools and young people to encourage them to look at ocean energy as an opportunity. And yeah, connection, I think that's clear. There already is good connections with other projects, but we could do more. Okay, so Laura May, should I perhaps stop now? I can leave this again in the background for people to add if they want to.
Yes, thank you, Mark.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your detailed presentation. So I don't see questions for the moment, either in the chat or the Q&A box. So yeah, I really let you. I gave you time to finish the presentation quietly. If you have any question, don't hesitate to ask them now. And if needed, we can answer now, or if there are other questions in the future, obviously don't hesitate to contact us and we can address them to the right partner within the OPIN consortium. We will answer you by email after the OPIN Annual Symposium. So I see here one question from Eric Van Vliet. To be honest, I don't get exactly what is the question about mooring chain. If you want to reformulate a bit how we can help and support on this on the OPIN side, Eric, do not hesitate to contact us. Is it related to a TAP, collaborative innovation group on mooring lines, or any other path? If you have questions for Mark on the long-term study, we are very interested to get feedback from the OPIN members on all this work done and how to make the network sustainable at the end of this Interreg funded. So just to remind, the project will be funded until June 2022, and we are investigating options for the future. I will share my screen again just for the last slides. So here we are. Okay, so again, on the Q&A, don't hesitate. If you ask them now, we can answer them now. If you contact us after, we'll answer you by email. We can set up dedicated meetings if needed. For the attendees who might be potentially directly here at Synergy in Nantes, if you want to join us in about 15 minutes on WEAMEC booth on Pays la Loire Pavilion, there will be a networking event organized with a coalition of Interreg funded projects, so OPIN, but also MEA, Fan-Based, Blue Gift, Ocean Demo, Afloat, and also Encore project. And we will explain the complementarity of our Interreg projects. So yeah, we'll be very happy to meet you there in person. For the other participants that might not be not, obviously we'll be very happy to meet you in person in future opportunities. And again, there will be also online events organized in the course of October, November. Don't hesitate to reach us if there is anything you would like to be involved in OPIN. Contact us, contact the partners. I'm just checking quickly if we have other questions here. Okay, so here we have a comment on the morning line. We'll address this to the right partner. Yeah, again, don't hesitate if you have comments on the CIGs, on the TAPs, on the long term of OPIN. We are very pleased to have all of you today. Thanks to all the presenters, to all participants and attendees from so many different countries. Yeah, we'll keep in touch. Don't hesitate to contact us, and we will send you information on our upcoming activities for the coming months. Thank you all. Bye-bye. Have a nice end of afternoon.